Computer. Okay, everyone, welcome to this. I think we're there. Well, we're returning from our hiatus, and we're going to begin. We're going to do the last session on Genesis, and then after today, from then on, we'll move on to the book of Exodus. So just before we begin, let's start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Joseph, guardian of the Redeemer, spouse of the Blessed Virgin Mary. To you God entrusted his only Son. In you Mary placed her trust. With you Christ became man. Blessed Joseph, to us too show yourself a father, and guide us in the path of life. Obtain for us, our families, and our parish, grace, mercy, and courage, and defend us from every evil. Amen. Saint Joseph, pray for us. Our Lady, seat of wisdom, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So, as I said, tonight we're going to look at Joseph, but we'll do a quick recap. And so if you can anyone, because it's been a while, be worth going over it again, remember the three promises. Anyone remember the three promises? Oh, if you could just hold on 1 second, the doorbell's ringing. I'm going to pause. Okay, we've
Okay.
gone back now. I just had to answer the door there. So you've had time to think. Can any remember the three promises? This is why I do repetition. I'm going to give you the first one.
And you're right, Robert, because we've like pea brains.
The
Yeah, go
first
on.
one, the first one is nation.
Yeah.
People,
People,
Nation needs land and people. The three promises, Genesis.
land, people.
So it's nation, great name,
Oh, yeah.
worldwide blessing.
Yeah.
All right. And it's probably be too much now to ask. In what chapter in Genesis did the nation get three?
12,
No, they're the promises.
15.
Well done. Okay, yes. Okay, it's time to come back now. Or you're reading your notes. One of
No, I
the
can't find my notes. I have to go look for them. That was the problem. I wasn't prepared.
and so we had the great nation, Genesis 15. God made the covenant with himself. Remember, it was all sacrifice of animals, fire and smoke. And we're going to see later on that kind of gets fulfilled by Moses. The great name was Genesis 17. God made a covenant with God, Abraham, and offspring. And it was the sacrifice that was performed there was circumcision, that sacrifice of the flesh. And we'll see that's going to be fulfilled by King David. And then we have worldwide blessing, Genesis chapter 22, made with Abraham, and the sacrifice was a son or a lamb. And we'll see that's going to be fulfilled by the passion of Jesus. So God makes these three promises with Abraham and upgrades these promises to covenants. And he upgrades them through the ritual of sacrifice. But as in the ritual of sacrifice, we see how these covenants are going to unfold. So when Abraham would perform the sacrifice, it wasn't just that they were a sacrifice, they were also prophetic, telling us how things were going to unfold in the future. And the completion of the final covenant, as we saw, will involve the sacrifice of God Himself, Jesus Christ on the cross. And then after our study of the three covenants, we return to the first covenant that God made with Abraham, that he would make a nation out of him. And in order for God to make a nation, what does He need to provide Abraham with?
An heir, a
So
son.
yeah, but remember, there was two things. In order to become a nation, you need land
People and land.
and offspring. That's right.
An heir.
That's correct. So land and offspring. So we will continue to look at our brief look at the three sons. So does anyone remember the name of Abraham's son?
Oh my gosh.
Esau. Esau.
No, that Abraham's son. What's the name of
For
Abraham's
Abraham.
son?
Ishmael,
No.
Isaac.
Well, Ishmael,
Isaac, Jacob,
Ishmael is one of his sons, but the son I'm
Ishmael.
on about is Isaac. Well done. Yep. And then Isaac had a son called Esau. Well, he had sons, Esau and Jacob. And then Jacob has sons, but we're going to look at Joseph. So the three main sons. So if you want to think that the line in the book of Genesis that we're following is the line of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And though as I said, I could go into great detail about each one, I was kind of just giving you cursory glances about them, highlighting certain points. So Abraham, he sent his servant to find a wife for Isaac, who ends up marrying Rebekah. And Rebekah has twins named Esau and Jacob. And
Yeah.
Esau has the birthright. Esau was born, even though they're twins, Esau came out first, so the birthright goes to him, and he was the one to receive the blessing. However, Esau gave his birthright away for some food, and then Jacob tricks Isaac to give him Esau's blessing. And Esau swears to murder Jacob once Isaac has died. So once the father Isaac has died, Esau said he's going to kill Jacob. So Rebekah told Jacob to flee. And while fleeing, Jacob had a dream about a ladder. Do you remember
Oh,
Jacob's ladder?
yes, Jacob's
Yes.
ladder. Yes.
Yeah. And then later on, he finds Rachel at a well, and he works 14 years to marry her because he was tricked to marry Leah after 7 years. And later on, Jacob wrestles with an angel, and the name of Jacob gets changed to
Israel.
Israel. That's right. So that's how the name Israel came about. So, okay, so we're going to have a quick look at Jacob's family tree. All right, so we've looked at Abraham, we've looked at Isaac, we've looked at Jacob. Now we're going to look at Jacob's family tree. Now we know Jacob married Rachel. We know that he married Leah, but he also married two other women, Bilhah and Zilpah. So Jacob had four wives. Okay. Now, with those four wives,
Yeah.
so he had four wives. If you were to have a guess, how many sons do you think he had with those four wives?
20.
No, no. Now really think about it because you do know the answer. So
Well,
what is Jacob's name?
12.
12.
12. Well
12.
done.
12
Ah,
nations and the 12.
Correct.
Yeah.
12 tribes.
The 12 tribes. So Jacob gets his name changed to Israel, and he has 12 sons. So this is how we get the 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah.
So now you know where the 12 tribes of Israel come. They're the 12 sons of Jacob. So the 12 tribes of Israel are the 12 sons of Jacob.
Yeah.
Because Jacob gets his name changed to Israel. And with Leah, he has Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Does Zebulun sound familiar?
Yes.
That was in the gospel today.
Well
There
done.
was.
You were paying attention in math. Well done. Does anyone, before I reveal the other names, Zebulun, and does anyone remember the name of the other?
Naphtali.
Naphtali. Well done. So with Rachel, the one that Jacob was besotted with, he had Benjamin and Joseph. With Bilhah, he had Dan and Naphtali. And with Zilpah, he had Gad and Asher. So they're the names of his 12 sons, but they're also the name of the 12,
Region.
Regions in Israel.
correct, or you could say the 12 tribes. But the
The
regions,
12
no,
tribes.
not yet.
Yeah.
Regions, you're 100% correct. Yeah. But the regions get their name from the 12 sons. So if you ever wondered where these names came from, or why it's 12 tribes, or where did Israel come from, now you should know. So the 12 tribes of Israel are the 12 sons of Jacob, whose name is now Israel. So how many sons did Israel have? 12.
12.
And these 12 sons become the 12 tribes. And bear with me. Joseph ends up having two sons that so do you see, can you see my cursor? Can you see my cursor?
No.
Yes,
Yes.
Joseph. Yeah.
Joseph.
All right.
Yeah.
Joseph ends up having two sons as well.
Yeah.
And what you'll see, this is actually important, and it'll be very important later on. What you'll see is Joseph ends up having two sons, and Jacob, Israel, he adopts them as his own. All right. Now, I'll be just flabbergasted. Does anyone know the name of the two sons
That Joseph.
that Joseph had?
Would one of them be David?
No.
On the wrong track. Give us a clue.
Well, you might know them. If you see in the green, Manasseh and Ephraim.
Oh, yeah.
So you probably would have heard them through the years, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, Manasseh and Ephraim are actually the sons of Joseph. And but Jacob adopts them. Now, here's the interesting thing. If I'm going to get rid of Manasseh and Ephraim, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you go, and I'll show you later, if you go look at a map of the 12 tribes of Israel, you won't actually see the 12 names there that are there now.
Yeah.
You won't see those 12 names. There'll be different names, and I'll show you why. Be a slight difference. Because the tribe of Joseph gets replaced with the true tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim. So you won't actually see, if you look, do you know, if you're saying, oh, what does it look like on the map, right? You actually won't find Joseph on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Remember you said there was 12 regions.
Yes.
Yes.
You won't find the region of Joseph. You'll find the region of Manasseh and Ephraim.
Okay.
All right. But and then out of all those tribes there, and there's a clue, one of them doesn't get land. Which tribe does not get a region and does not get a land?
Manasseh.
No. So there's a clue if you really look at how all the names are written.
Levi.
Well done. Yeah. So all the tribes get land, okay? Except Levi. And Joseph is split into Manasseh and Ephraim. So it's worth noting later that in the Bible, the 12 tribes of Israel kind of get recategorized according to the land they get in Canaan. Levi gets none, and the land for Joseph is shared between his two sons. Therefore, according to land, the 12 tribes of Israel are listed in the Bible as. So if you go later on, so remember what I said, the 12 sons of Joseph are the 12 tribes of Israel.
Yeah.
But if you go and see how the land is divided, this is how it would read: Reuben, Simeon, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Manasseh, Ephraim, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And why? Because Levi doesn't get land and Joseph gets changed into Manasseh and Ephraim. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But that's still 12.
Yes.
You see? So people will go, well, where's the tribe? Where's the region of Joseph? I don't see the region of Joseph on the map. And you go, it's Manasseh and Ephraim, and Levi didn't get land. So look, here we are here. So,
So can I ask you a question?
yep,
Is that the Joseph that they put in the well?
it is. And that's who we're going to look at tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So, do you see, here's the map. See the map?
Yeah.
All right. Do you see Manasseh and Ephraim in the
Yes.
middle?
Yes.
Now, Manasseh and Ephraim are actually who?
Joseph's sons.
Joseph's two sons.
Exactly. So those two lands are actually the land of Joseph, but they get split into Manasseh and Ephraim. Does that make sense now? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Levi doesn't get land. But
Gets nothing.
yeah, well, no. Levi gets is God says to Levi, "I'm your portion." Yeah. So,
Oh.
but we'll look at that later on. But what you'll see there, you'll see that there's 12 tribes, but Levi and Joseph aren't there.
Uh-huh.
But that's because Levi gets a different inheritance and Joseph gets split into Manasseh and Ephraim. So I only go through this because when we go through the Bible and you might look at it and you go, hold on, the 12 tribes of Israel, where's Joseph? Where's Levi? Who's Manasseh? Who's Ephraim? Yeah. Because Manasseh and Ephraim aren't the two sons of Jacob, but he adopts them. They're Joseph's sons. So anyway, that's just a little thing to know that will make sense much later on in the Bible. But I hope you remember this better than you remember the three promises.
Yeah, I just caught on the hop there after
Yeah,
the break.
right. And then but if you look at that map, and you were to count all the spots, you would actually count 13. And the reason being is, can anyone who's eagle-eyed, can anyone notice anything? There's one tribe that's peculiarly placed on this map.
Tire.
And Dan.
Dan is, yes, correct. So you can see Dan's at the top, gets a piece at the top, and Dan gets a piece near the bottom in the middle. Do you see?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So there's still 12 tribes, but Dan's split into two locations. And that happened because Dan was very bold. All right. We'll go into that later. But whenever you look at this map now and you think, my goodness, where did all these names come from? And someone said to you, if someone ever said to you, where did all these names for Israel, for all these regions in Israel come from? What could you say to them?
The 12 sons
Jacob.
of Jacob.
Yeah. But then what if someone said to you, but hold on, where's Joseph?
He's Manasseh.
He-
Manasseh and
Manasseh and Ephraim.
Yeah, exactly. But then they say, but they're not the sons of Jacob. And then
They
you
were adopted.
correct. Well done. And then they say, but where's Levi?
Levi got another promise.
Yeah, exactly. Well done. I mean, this confuses a lot of people, but it's worth doing now because I said this will make sense later. But you've got it. All right.
Mhm.
So now we know later on where Israel comes from. Yeah, and why these names and everything.
Mhm.
So there we are. So now we move on to Joseph. So now we could now seriously, I mean, doing one talk on Joseph is an injustice because I could spend a long time on Joseph. Because when we look at the life of Joseph, boy oh boy, will we see a lot of similarities between Joseph and Jesus. All right. So,
Wow.
yeah, oh yeah. The fathers of the church saw in the life of Joseph like a foretelling of the life of Jesus. So when you look at the life of Joseph, it's like the life of Jesus. And but I'll just highlight some of the similarities along the way. But the church fathers were all over this. What I'm interested in getting across to you is how the 12 sons of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, what I want is how they end up in Israel. So at the moment, where are they? Well, they're in the land of Canaan at the moment, and then they'll end up the 12. So the 12 sons are in Canaan at the moment. Where will they end up? They'll end up in Egypt. Yeah.
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 Okay. And then from Egypt they'll go back to the land of Canaan after how many years in Egypt?
40.
Who said it there?
40.
No,
40.
40.
put an extra zero on.
400.
That's
400.
well
Sorry.
done. So the tribe, the 12 sons will end up in Egypt, and then after 400 years, God will free them, and they'll go back to the land of Canaan, and it will become the land of Israel. So Jackie, do you want to read this for me? The Lord said to
Sure.
Abraham.
Yeah. Mm. So sorry, I just want to try and get rid of that. The Lord said to Abraham, know of a surety that your descendants will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be slaves there, and they will be oppressed for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation which they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. Genesis 15:12-16.
So we know, Jackie. I don't know how you do, but somehow you managed to draw each one draw on the screen. Can you see it? The red line.
I did that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh
look, I
no.
can do that. Sorry.
Oh, Jackie, can you
Sorry.
undo it?
How can I undo that? Undo. I don't know how to undo what I've just done.
Joking.
Sorry, Robert.
I don't know how to get rid of it.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, you did something and got rid of it.
Did I?
Yeah.
Now you
There we
did.
go.
Well
Yeah,
done, Jackie.
Well
I
done,
got it
Jeff.
undone.
All right.
Sorry.
Jackie, and you, well, I loved it. You got intrigued by it and started doing it more.
Yeah, like a child. It's like, don't press
Don't
the button.
touch
Okay.
the screen, Jackie.
How
All
did
right.
you know I was capable of doing that? Like,
Yeah, it's only your one. I don't know how, but anyway. So what did God say to Abraham? He said to Abraham, your descendants, yeah, will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs. They'll become slaves for 400 years, and then I will free them. And so what we're going to see tonight is how they end up in a land that is not theirs. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's we're going to see how they end up in Egypt because this is what God told Abraham would happen. So, Letizia, do you want to read for me?
Our introduction to Joseph. Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's joinings in the land of Canaan. Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a long multicolored robe with sleeves. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably peaceably to him.
So there we are. So then we never see the amazing. What's it? What's that show? I can never remember the title of that musical. Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat.
40.
Matt,
the
the
amazing
multicolored.
Technicolored Dreamcoat.
Great.
Amazing.
Yeah. So this is where it comes from. So it's this sentence, and Jacob made his son Joseph a long, multicolored robe with sleeves. Um, a multicolored, long-sleeved robe. You have to understand, back then would have been really expensive. Yeah, like we're used to just having colors at our fingertips today, but to get colors and to dye clothing and all that would have been so expensive back then. So it would
Yeah.
have been a great sign of importance and favoritism and wealth to have a piece of clothing like that. And so uh, the father clothes his son in this uh, glorious robe, you could say, yeah.
Yeah.
And the fathers of the church, they said the multicolored robe prefigures the glory with which the Father clothed the Son as his coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's that that famous bit. So he receives this multicolored robe, and his brothers become jealous. All right. So who else can read? Carmel,
Yes.
do you want to read for me?
Now, the dream of Joseph, I will. The dream of Joseph. Joseph, just like his father Jacob, also had dreams. Now, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they only hated him the more. He said to them, "Hear this dream which I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brother said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us, or are you indeed to have dominion over us?" So they hated him yet more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream. And behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in his mind. Genesis 37, 5 to 11.
So these are the two famous dreams of Joseph. And basically what they're pointing to is that at some time in the future, Joseph will be in charge. Yeah. So sometime in the future, Joseph will be in charge, and all his older brothers and even his father and his mother will be bowing down to him. And so Joseph has this amazing Technicolor dream coat that makes him look, which is a clear sign that he's the favorite, and it gives him great status. And now he's telling them, not only do I have this amazing robe, but I'm also going, as the youngest, I'm going to rule over all of you. And they're just like, who does he think he is? So, interpreting the dream of Joseph, quite clearly, Joseph is the sheaf that all the other sheaves bow down to, signifying that Joseph will somehow rule over his brothers. And his second dream is similar, but in this dream, even his father and mother, signified by the sun and the moon, will bow down before him, signifying that he will not only rule over the family, but he will rule with royal authority. And the two dreams together foretell that Joseph will have royal power. So, how do the two dreams signify that Joseph will have royal power? Well, let's go a bit deeper. Um, just before, actually, some of you may have read it, but can anyone remember the first, very quickly, and there's a reason why I'm doing this, what was the first dream?
It was the sheaves, and one sheaf rose higher than the other, and they all
Yeah.
bowed down before it.
And the second dream was?
It was similar.
But the parents bowed down the second time as well.
Yeah, but what did he see in his dream? Who back in
I
his
forget. No one knows.
Even his father and mother before signifying that they know.
Okay. It was stars, moons, and sun.
Oh yeah, star, moon, sun.
So in the first dream, yeah, it was a dream that used the land.
Yeah.
And in the second dream, it was the dream that used the heavens.
Yeah. Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So in both dreams, he has a vision in which through land metaphor, the land is bowing to him. And in the second dream, through heavenly metaphor, the heavens are bowing to him. So the two dreams encompass heaven and earth. Do you see how I got there?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So notice in his first dream, the first dream uses an earthly image, whereas in his second dream, it uses a heavenly cosmic image.
Yeah.
And so if you take the two images together, heaven and earth bow down before Joseph. Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right. So the two dreams together is heaven and earth are bowing down before Joseph. As I said earlier, the fathers of the church saw in Joseph a foretelling of the life of Jesus. The dream of Joseph speak of a king to come whom heaven and earth bend the knee to. So who does heaven and earth bend the knee to?
Jesus.
Jesus Christ,
Well, yeah, God, yeah, a king. Like
God.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
Eileen, is Eileen there?
I am, yes.
So listen to how
Now,
Paul,
listen to
yeah, go for it.
describes Jesus. Therefore, God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name which is above every name, that at that name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father.
So,
Philippians 2,
what does he say that every every knee should bow in heaven and on earth?
and under the earth.
Yeah. So in heaven and on earth and under the earth, correct. Every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So it is a to say that heaven and earth bow before you is a very royal uh, image. It means you have full authority. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the king has authority. That's what makes a king, by the way. A king is a king because he has authority. And in this image, and everyone bows before the king. And so in this image, heaven and earth are bowing before Joseph, showing that he is like this, like almost cosmic king. And what Paul, when he speaks of Jesus, he says, well, actually, Jesus is the true king because heaven and earth actually do bow before him, right? So do you remember what I said? Joseph is always seems to be like a prefigurement of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we can see it there. While Joseph may fulfill the dream with regards to his family, it is Jesus, Paul says, that is the true king who rules over the whole of creation. And then we'll go back to you, Jackie. Do you want to read for us?
Yeah, sure. Now his brothers went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Doham. They saw him afar off, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we shall say that a wild beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. But when Reuben heard it, he delivered him out of their hands, saying, let us not take his life. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood, cast him into this pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand upon him, that he might rescue him out of their hand, to restore him to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the long robe with sleeves that he wore, and they took him and cast him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it.
All right. So there we are. So uh it was Carmel, it was you who asked, is this the Joseph who goes into the pit? Yeah?
Yes.
There you are. So this is how he goes into the pit. But let's really look at this because remember what I keep saying to you is Joseph, when the fathers of the church read scripture, they kept seeing in Joseph like a foretelling of Jesus. We looked at the one where heaven and earth bow down to him, and then Paul says, well, actually the heaven and earth bow down to the true King, Jesus. And now we're looking at this one where he's fallen, been thrown into the pit by his brothers. So we'll go through this one now. So you could begin to possibly see why, when the fathers of the church read the account of Joseph, they could see the story of Christ in the life of Joseph. But if you can't, we'll go through it. Jacob, the father, sends his beloved son to his wayward brothers. So what we just read there, Jacob the father sent his beloved son Joseph to his wayward brothers. John 3:16.
So would that be like God sending Jesus to us and we're wayward?
Yeah. So what do I have? What's that? What's written in the red there?
For God so loved the world that he sent his only son.
There you are. Yeah. And upon seeing his Joseph, his brothers conspired to kill him. Letizia, do you want to read the red?
So the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered the council and said, "What are we to do?" So from that day on, they took counsel about how to put him to death.
All right. And then the brothers, they strip Joseph from his garments. They strip him from his robes. Carmel, do you want to read the red?
Yes. When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his garments. John
Wow.
19:23.
Wow.
All right.
Gee,
And
yeah.
it goes on. Then his brothers cast him into an empty pit. Eileen, do you want to read the red?
Um, yes. Now, in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden, a new tomb where no one had ever been laid.
All right. So you can see that that whole account, this is how the fathers of the church saw it, that whole account of Joseph going to uh, his brothers conspiring to kill him, stripping him, and putting him into a waterless, empty pit. They saw Jesus. The Father sent the Son into the world. They conspired to kill him. They strip him of his garments and they place him in an empty tomb in the ground.
Wow.
They put him in an empty pit, right? So you can see how the fathers of the church see Joseph as a prefigurement of Jesus. Chloe, I forgot you because you weren't on my screen. Do you want to? Can you read,
Amen.
Chloe?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sorry, I left. So
So
yeah,
where do you want me to start from, Father Rob?
but the similarities continue.
Yeah, no problem. So then they sat down to eat, and looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels bearing balm and myrrh, on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers heeded him. Then Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up, and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt.
Okay, so this is
Wow.
where it gets really cool here. So the Ishmaelites came to the pit where Joseph is, and they're carrying gum, bombs, and myrrh. So Joseph is in the pit, yeah, yeah, and and all of a sudden uh these kind of what are they called? Um, not like
Ishmaelites?
no fragrances, ointments,
Oh,
and
Oh,
everything. Uh, so remember, Joseph's in the pit. and then these traders carrying all these bombs and myrrh, yeah, come along. Uh,
Oh,
and
oh.
so Joseph's in the pit, Jesus is in the tomb. Jackie, do you want to read the red?
Nicodemus also, who had at first come to him by night, came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloe, about 100 pounds weight. John 19:39.
So Joseph's in the pit, and all this myrrh comes their way, um, and then Jesus is in the tomb, and this myrrh comes his way. Do you understand? So it's just another kind of like showing
Yes.
this stuff, but this is where it gets really, really wild. Uh, so if you go back, which brother decides to sell? He says, actually, let's sell Joseph. We'll go back. Which brother, it's in the red, and I'm giving you a clue now. Which brother decides to sell Joseph?
Judah.
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 Judah. Okay. So the brother Judah has the idea to sell Joseph into slavery, into the hands
Wow.
of the Egyptians.
Judas. Sorry.
Yeah, so yeah. So the brother Judah, he has the idea to sell Joseph into slavery, into the hands of the Egyptians, who are the superpower at that time. Egypt will also come to represent
Yeah.
the kingdom of Satan. But here's the thing. Uh, does anyone know the Greek for Judah? So the Greek for Judah, if you were to translate it into English, what name that would be?
Judas.
Judas.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
All right.
It's all prefigured.
It
That's
is.
yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Wow.
Um, so which brother decides to sell Joseph?
Judah. Judah.
Judah.
And Judah can be said in English as
Judas.
Judas.
so
Iscariot.
So Judas decides to sell Joseph for 20 shekels of silver. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
So the brother Judas, is the one who decides to sell his brother to the enemy for 20
20
shekels.
shekels.
Uh, and then uh, we'll go to Carmel. Carmel, do you want to read the red at the bottom?
Yes. Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I deliver him to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. Matthew 26.
So it's incredible that it was Judas, the brother, who sold Joseph, and it was Judas who sold Jesus. Like it's insane, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm.
You
And
know.
for both
Absolutely
brothers.
unbelievable. I just can't believe what you've
Yeah.
just shared. I've read that story so many times. I've never ever noticed that.
Well, this is again, you know, church fathers and God love Scott Hahn as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a shameless plug, but his new Bible, his new study Bible is just incredible. Yeah. So if you don't have Scott Hahn's study Bible, I highly recommend it.
I'm getting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I ain't sitting here making this up. I'm reading everything I can get. And
Mm.
the but that study Bible is fantastic as well. But the church fathers, I just mean they're on another level. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is why the church fathers, when they were reading the life of Joseph, they were kind of going, wow, Joseph is like prefiguring the life of Jesus. And as Jackie pointed out, yes, it's um, the Old Testament is a prefigurement. The Old Testament is a prophecy. Yeah.
Wow.
Sure.
And so the more this is my homily this weekend, I was saying the more we understand the Old Testament. Do you know in Vatican I and with the Church Fathers, they said one of the proofs for who Jesus is, actually, they said one of his proofs of the resurrection of Jesus is the fulfillment of prophecy.
Mm.
And they said all these prophecies came true. And so and one of the things that we need to get comfortable with again as Christians is people say, why do you believe in Jesus? And we go, because of the fulfillment of prophecy.
Yes.
Yeah, the fulfillment of prophecy.
Sure.
It's not because of a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's actually the
Mm.
fulfillment of prophecy. And this is why I like going through this, because the more we know the Old Testament, the more we understand, wow, it was all fulfilled. And this was written like 2,000 years before Jesus. Well, 1,000 years before Jesus, yeah?
Wow.
And it happened. So it's incredible. Um, so prophecy gives us confidence. So
Yeah.
interesting fact. Oh yeah, I love this. Interesting fact about the selling Joseph. So Joseph was sold for 20 shekels, right, into slavery. Now we know from archaeological
Hmm.
sources that the price of a slave at the time of the early second millennium BC was 20 shekels. So we know that in the early 2,000 years before Christ, right? So 4,000 years ago, we know from archaeology that 4,000 years ago, if you were selling a man into slavery, the cost was 20 shekels. We know that, all right?
Yeah.
And and we also know that the price of a slave went up. So 20 shekels is at that was it was the price of slave at that time. And over the years, the centuries, it went up.
It
And
was
what
30 pieces of silver equating to it in Jesus's time, is it?
could have been? Yeah, I don't know. Actually, that's a good point. I don't know what the cost of a slave was at the time of Jesus. But what this means is that this passage is historically accurate and not a later fabrication, um, because uh, this story must be a living memory. Because if I was to ask you, how much did a horse cost 1,000 years ago? Then you know how much a horse cost 1,000 years ago?
No. No.
No, right? So the idea that we know what something cost 1,000 years ago. So whoever was writing this down, right? Whoever was writing down Genesis, like if it was Moses, but this is 1,000 years before Moses even. So what this tells us is that whoever wrote this down, this account of Joseph has come accurately to them because the cost of a slave was correct.
Mm-hmm.
So what I just give this to you because um, regardless of what we can say about this passage, with regard to when it was written down, but because of this small, precisely accurate details dotted throughout Genesis, this gives us confidence that Genesis is a reliable memory being transmitted to us. It's not fiction. The fact that Joseph is sold for 20 shekels of silver or 20 shekels. We know Joseph was sold for 20 shekels. And we know that that actually is the correct uh, cost of a slave back then. So, what this means is this is accurate. Genesis is accurate, it's an accurate memory. And so these little details gives us confidence that this is historically accurate. This is a historical story. All right, bit of a sidetrack there, but do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're correct. I can't tell you what the cost of a horse was 1,000 years ago. Yeah, it's not like we retained this information. So whoever wrote this down had an actual accurate story from the past, and it's been written down. So it's a reliable account, historical account. Places, names, geography, and economic details are surprisingly on point in Genesis. Like they're accurate. So anyway, we'll move on. But I just like that little detail. I love just having confidence. With all these things happening to Joseph, you can see how the fathers of the church seeing Joseph acting as a type of Christ. And we'll move swiftly on now. So who was Joseph being sold to? Joseph was ultimately being sold to the Egyptians. So Joseph is sold.
Ishmael.
Yeah, he was sold to the Ishmaelites, and the Ishmaelites are going to sell him to the Egyptians.
Egyptians.
Yeah. So Joseph is sold into slavery, and through a series of events, he ends up in front of Pharaoh. So he's sold into slavery, but through a series of events, Joseph ends up in front of Pharaoh
Oh.
in Egypt. So Joseph is now in Egypt. And Joseph has a reputation for interpreting people's dreams. And Pharaoh has a dream his magicians are unable to interpret. So Pharaoh hears about Joseph and he says, right, bring that lad in front of me. I'll tell him my dream so he can interpret it for me. So this is how Joseph ends up in Egypt. Does that make sense? He's
Yep.
sold into slavery. He has a reputation for interpreting dreams. Pharaoh has a dream that needs interpreted. Joseph is brought to Pharaoh. And in the dream, Pharaoh tells Joseph that he dreamt of 7 fat cows and 7 gaunt cows, skinny, emaciated cows. And Joseph tells Pharaoh, he says, this dream of 7 fat cows and 7 emaciated cows, he says, it means you're going to have 7 prosperous years. But these 7 prosperous years are going to be followed by 7 years of famine. So you better start storing grain. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So Pharaoh says, all right then, well, I'm going to give you charge over my royal household. And all of a sudden, Joseph has royal power. So what do you think that's fulfilling? Something we read very earlier on.
Yes, the dreams.
The dreams of Joseph, where Joseph dreamt that he had this like dream of where heaven and earth were bowing to him. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And now, from going from being, get this, just get this in your head. Joseph is basically a nomadic man living in the land of Canaan. And he says, I'm going to have royal power. And they're like, who do you think you are? And from saying that, instead of climbing the ladder, his brothers try to kill him and throw him into a pit. And then he gets sold into slavery. And you're thinking, this dream can never come true. Yeah, he's now a slave. And this guy said he was going to have royal power. Well, keep reading. And then all of a sudden, he has a reputation for dreams. And then he ends up in front of Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh gives him charge of the royal household. And the dream came true. Joseph has royal power. But you see how we got there?
Yeah.
Was it a meteoric rise? Was he climbing the ladder? No. He went down first, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. He went down into the pit and then he ascended.
Oh, he ascended.
Right? Yeah, then he ascended into power. Who's that sound like?
Jesus for the ascension from the tomb.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, who read last there?
Carmel.
Eileen, will you read for me?
Yes. Israel comes to Egypt. All the earth came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain, because the famine was severe over all the earth. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And he said, "Behold, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down and buy grain for us there, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with his brothers, for he feared that harm might befall him. Thus the sons of Israel came to buy among the others who came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Genesis 41.
Okay. So a number of things are happening here. Do you remember God said to Abraham, your descendants will end in a foreign land,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll be there for 400 years? Well,
yeah.
look what's happened. Joseph's in Egypt, and his brothers end up going to Egypt. So where is Joseph and his brothers?
Into
In
Egypt.
Egypt. So now we know how Israel ended up in Egypt. A famine in Canaan drove them down to Egypt. And the brothers come down and they don't recognize Joseph. All right? They don't recognize him. And they're coming down and they need to buy grain to survive. And look what happens. Now, remember in the dreams, what did Joseph say? He said, I will be a sheaf standing up, and
Yes.
you'll be sheaves, and you will.
Bow down.
Bow.
All right. So the 10 brothers have arrived in Egypt. They're at Joseph. They don't recognize him, but read what happens. Letizia.
And Joseph's brothers came and bowed themselves before him with their faces to the ground.
So the dream was fulfilled, wasn't it?
Wow. Gee, yeah.
Thus fulfilling the dream of the sheaves.
Mhm.
All right.
Father Robert,
Yeah.
um, I might be well off track here, but is that similar to the Jewish people not recognizing Jesus?
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. That's why I'm saying. That's why I said I could spend ages on Joseph. All right. Uh, but the
But
church,
then they
yeah.
but then they do recognize him.
Uh,
So
they later on they do. Why? Because Joseph tells them who he is.
so does that what does that mean in terms of the Jewish people finally recognizing Jesus?
Well,
Is there a connection there
well,
somehow?
there is, but what you have to remember is a lot of people tend to forget this because we deal with the Jews today. But the early church, Letizia, was Jewish converts.
Y- Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
For the first 15 years of the church, they didn't preach to Gentiles. They preached to the Jews. Mary
Yeah.
was a Jew, James, Joseph, Philip, Andrew, Peter, yeah. The 500 he appeared to, all Jews. So we can't say
So
that yeah.
is it more than that the brothers are like the apostles then, or
No, they
No.
represent the the Israelites. But
right? Yeah, okay.
but I think what we tend to forget, we say the Jews didn't recognize Jesus. No, a lot of the Jews did.
Did recognize them, yeah, because they were all Jewish anyway, weren't
Yeah,
they, Robert?
yeah. The early church are Jewish converts. Who is it that
Yeah.
starts preaching to the Gentiles?
Oh,
The
It's
Jews,
Paul.
the
it's
apostles.
Paul.
yeah.
Yeah.
St. Paul.
If
Mm.
Saint Paul was the one
Yeah, that's
who
true.
started bringing it to the Gentiles, that's 15 years later.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So we tend to forget, yeah, that most of Israel did come along and
Mm,
some didn't. And then Paul asked a question. He says, why aren't they, it's for them. And he says that God has given them a hardness of heart. And it's also part of our theology, especially in our catechism, that there is the story of the Jews converting is still a part when all the Jews convert, and
mm,
it will be the end time. Yeah.
mm,
So the Jews still have a story to play,
yeah.
even in Catholicism. Yeah. But
Mm.
we can't say that the Jews didn't recognize Jesus. They did. Well, actually, we can't say Jews because that's just the tribe of Judah. The Israelites, yeah,
Yeah.
the Israelites did recognize Jesus. Jesus did restore the 12 tribes. Yeah. Jesus brought the 12 tribes into him and he brought the Gentiles into him.
Mm,
Yeah. And so they did convert. That's very important. Yeah.
mm,
we're looking at the ones who didn't convert. But um, I'll give you a great one. The book of Acts. Peter stands up, right? The day of Pentecost. Peter stands up. He proclaims Jesus to the people in Jerusalem. How many were baptized that day?
3,000.
It was 5,000, I thought.
Yeah, 5,000.
All right. They're Israelites.
Mm,
Do you understand?
Yeah.
yeah,
That's it. They're Israelites that converted
yeah.
to Christianity. They did accept, not all of them. And the ones that don't accept, they really hurt Paul. Paul's really upset by them. But we cannot say that Jesus failed, yeah, to convert the Israel. They did, but not all of them. And we also said all the Gentiles will come in. Have all the Gentiles come in yet? No.
No.
So it's ongoing
Mm,
until Christ returns.
Wow.
So yeah, I always just say you've got to be a bit careful saying that they the authorities rejected him and all
mm.
that. So we got to be just a little bit more careful about that, you know. And Jews are converting today.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Yeah. And I always said to him, and when they convert en masse suddenly, then get really worried because, well, worried or not, well, just make sure you go to confession because the end times are coming.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Good question. Good question. Yeah. Um, in the end, Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, but rather than condemn them, listen to what he says. Right. So remember, these are the brothers that threw him in a pit. Right. These are the brothers that threw him in a pit, and they were mean to him and everything. And they're before Joseph. And instead of saying, now I'm the one in charge, you were mean to me, I'm not giving you any grain. See how you like it. Yeah. That's what I think most people would do.
Forgave.
Yeah. Listen to what Joseph says, and you'll see again why he's like a prefigurement of Jesus. Chloe, will you read for me, please?
Yeah, of course. And God sent me before you to preserve you for a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God, and he has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Make haste and go up to my father, and say to him, Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, and your children's children.
So he forgives them. And he forgives them because he
Yeah.
says, he says, it was not you who sent me here. Yeah, it was God.
Yeah.
So when Jacob hears the message from and so he says to his brothers, go back to my father and get my father down here. Yeah. He's reconciling the whole family. All right. The one that was rejected is the one reconciling.
Cornerstone.
Yes.
Yeah. Good point, Jackie.
All right.
Mm.
So well actually I'll go back up the list now. Letizia, do you want to read this one for me?
God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here I am. Sorry, here am I. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will there make of you a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again. And Joseph's hand shall close your eyes.
Right. So,
Mm.
because if you didn't know the three promises, yeah,
Mm. Mm.
And you just opened up the Bible and read Genesis 46, you wouldn't, that would, you just go, right, okay. But God told Abraham, he said, Abraham, Abraham, he says, I'm going to send your descendants down to Egypt and make a nation out of you. And now Abraham had a son called Isaac, who had a son called Jacob. And now God is saying to Jacob, 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 yeah, I am the God of your father, of Isaac and Abraham. I told them, you're going to go down to Egypt, and I will make a nation out of you there. You will go into slavery, but I will call you back out. So he's reminding Jacob, Jacob, this is all part of the plan. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then he says, and your son Joseph will be the one to close your eyes, signifying reconciliation as well, by the way. Yeah. So Jacob dies. Jacob dies. But first he blesses Joseph, and then he adopts as his sons the two sons of Joseph. Who are the two sons of Joseph?
Benjamin.
Huh?
Ephraim
Ephraim.
Ephraim? Yeah.
and
Ma-
Manasseh.
Manasseh.
Manasseh. Well done. All right. So this is the moment where Jacob adopts Joseph's two sons. As Jacob is dying, he blesses Joseph, by the way, who's not the firstborn son. Yeah. But he gives him the blessing, the firstborn. He gives the blessing to him, by the way. And so he blesses Joseph's, and then Jacob takes into his, under his patronage, he takes Ephraim and Manasseh. Then at the end, Joseph dies with these final words. We go back up to Jackie, you're on my list.
Then at the end, Joseph dies with these final words. So Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's house, and Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation, the children also of Machir, the son of Manus,
Manasseh.
Manasseh, were born upon Joseph's knees. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land to the land which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph took an oath of the sons of Israel, saying, God will visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
Right. So that's how the book of Genesis ends. Okay? And now you understand the ending. It ends, right? So we had the whole thing with Abraham. And God said, nation, great name, worldwide blessing, and I will give you land and offspring. But he said, first, your offspring will go into a foreign land, and they'll be there for 400 years. And when the sin of the Amalekites are repugnant enough, I will free you from the foreign land and bring you back home. And Genesis ends with that promise
Yeah.
that God will bring you back out of this land to the land which he swore to Abraham. That's how Genesis ends, with the promise that God made Abraham. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when we go into Exodus, and the people are enslaved for 400 years, this is the promise that's in the back of their mind. God made the promise to Jacob. God made the promise to Abraham. And so the book of Genesis ends with a final reminder of the original promises God made to Abraham. And now you understand that. But just before we finish, just a couple of little short things. Well, I want to talk to you about divine providence. It's very important. So, one of the most important lessons we must take from the book of Genesis is the idea of divine providence. And how are we to understand divine providence? And this is very important. This actually really is important. I really want you to all get this. In Genesis, there are two stories, there are two narratives being woven together. There is the big narrative of God, okay? The bit, you know, where God made all these promises and God interacts. That's like the
Yeah.
big, you know, the nation, the name, and all that. And so there's that big narrative. But then there's the little narrative of the individual. Like, you know, when Joseph is in Egypt, we don't really we don't really get big details of what happened, do we?
No.
No.
So Joseph just was just living his life in Egypt. And so we have these two narratives. We have the big narrative of God and we have the narrative of the life of Joseph. And the way I kind of like God has written the main story. I want you to understand this because this is what I'm trying to say to you. This applies to us. Okay? God has written the main story, which governs the flow and meaning of everything. We live in a story that has been written by God, just like Joseph, just like Abraham. Yeah.
Yeah.
God's stories, the story of God that we are part of, answers questions such as what is the meaning of life? All right.
Yeah.
We are living our lives. We are living our little story. We are living our little story, our little life in the big story of God.
Wow.
Amen.
Yeah. In its most simplest form, God's story is about us going from point A to point B. So God is bringing us. We are in His story, and He's bringing us from point A to point B. But we are free. We're free in God's story. Okay? We are free agents. We have the freedom to write our own little
Hmm.
story within God's bigger story. So the way I like to imagine it, actually, I'll get one of you to read it. Carmel, can you read the red for me?
Yes. Imagine being in a boat on a river. The river is like God's big story. It moves us along from point A to point B. However, we don't necessarily have to go down the river in a straight line. We can zigzag our way down the river. We are free to do so. We can get into arguments with people in other boats. We can stop and help people who are struggling in their boats. Sometimes people in other boats will mess up our plans.
So do you see? We're all going down. God's narrative is like a big river, yeah, flowing, moving us down in one direction. But we're free to kind of dot around the river any way we want. We can write that little story. God's not saying you can't go. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yes.
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 Okay. So God's story is for us to sail down the river, but He gave us life. He gave us creation. He gave us a river and a boat. He gave us food with fish in the rivers and trees along the shore, and He gave us purpose. Sail down the river. Our life is taking place within God's framework, and His story is moving us along. How we go down the river from point A to point B is up to us.
Mm.
We may spend our whole life fighting the current of the river. Yeah. We might be zigzagging side to side. We might get off and have a picnic on the side of the river. Yeah. And never move along. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but everyone is free to write their own little story about how they flowed down the river. And what I'm talking about, what I'm trying to write in this, I'm saying we have free will in
Mm.
God's big story. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We're getting to the important bit now. And this is why I love when we look at Joseph and we look at Genesis. Let's look at Joseph and break down his life as a story written by God, which Joseph is free to act in. Joseph is human. So Joseph, like all of us, is sailing down the river of life. That is the main narrative of his life. But God has written a subplot. God has written like an additional narrative into his life that Joseph would end up with royal power. So God said, Joseph, as you flow down the river, I've written this into your story. And the life of Joseph is freely lived within this narrative. We don't hear what Joseph does for most of his life. All we know is good and bad things happen. Joseph is zigzagging his way down. What's important to realize, even when tragedies happen, Joseph is still in God's narrative. When Joseph was in the pit, he probably thought he was a goner, or at the
Yeah.
very least, that he had to live a life with the idea that he was hated by his family. Can you imagine how Joseph was feeling in that pit? My goodness, my brothers threw me into this pit. Or like, my family hate me. Yeah? Or he's probably thinking, my goodness, I'm going to die here. But one thing dying, but I always think, gosh, my family threw me into a pit. Yeah? Like, ugh. Um, and so, but Joseph, if you if but God said, but Joseph was part of a bigger story. So our lives are not independent from God. We are part of God's great story. We are free agents living within God's story. God has written a main plot and a subplot for all of us, and we are to act out our lives accordingly with the faith that God's story is good. And so I said, crappy things will happen, suffering will happen, things will not go our way. Death, famine, and family wars do occur, but these are not the main storylines.
Amen.
These are difficulties we occur in going from point A to point B. These
Yeah.
are difficulties we experience as we
Amen.
flow down that river. But the difficulties are not the storyline.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Joseph being in the pit is not the defining point of his life. Yeah. The
Amen.
point was the promise of God. He's in the bigger story of God. Even in places of suffering, like Joseph in the pit, family wars, all this, God's story is for us is moving us along. Even when it seems like what we encounter are impossible situations, they're not the main theme. Our lives are lived out in God's story, not the way or other way around. Get that? We live our lives in God's story. God's not living his life in our story. You might need time to think about that one. But we have to understand that we're going down the river and things will happen. But the river is the real story, and the river's moving us along. All the interactions in between, they're not the actual story.
Amazing. And it's so true. And I can see it in my own life when you say that.
Exactly. So, um, and that's why I just wanted to end on that, because one of the most beautiful things about that lesson on the when you look at their lives, there's like those two stories. There's their lives are living out in the bigger story of God. And just that analogy of we are going down the
Yeah.
river.
Wow.
Yeah. And so when things are bleak, when things are bad, that's not the main storyline. Yeah. So anyway, I'll just share
Amen.
that with you.
Yeah. You're
Um,
right, Robert.
so
Beautiful. That was just phenomenal.
so I'll
Thank you.
leave it there tonight, and I'll wish you all God bless, and I will see
God
you
bless.
next week. God bless.
All right. God